Good afternoon, and welcome to the first episode of Jiggers' Place. I'm your host, Kevin Bemel, and we're going to be here, at least right now, every other Thursday afternoon at 5 p.m. Pacific time, and it's already evening on the East Coast, of course, 8 p.m., but, between 5 and 8, that's kind of a cocktail hour, I think, and this is a chance for us to get away from business and professional topics, and toward the end of the week, just enjoy a half an hour together, talking about things that are both more and less important than our business and professional lives. So if you're wondering, if you haven't seen the episode I did last week on Wednesday, in place of my regular show, People Making Money, on how this show came about, Jiggers' Place relates to, here you can see it here, this is my dog Jiggers. He was a tricolored Jack Russell Terrier, and you can see it kind of in the background where it says Jiggers' Place on one of the chests. This one happens to hold all the liqueurs in my spirits collection. And it's where there are no strangers, only great friends we haven't met yet. So Jiggers was an enormously charismatic little guy. And I'm not going to go into the long stories because we don't have the time to do that. But, do go to our YouTube channel and check out last week's episode where I tell some of the background about Jiggers and how he came to be thought of as just such a wonderful little dog. So I named my home bar after him, and this is, like I said, an opportunity for me to share this with you, share one of my deep passions, which is wine, beer, and spirits, cocktails, and all those things, and some of the other interests that I find make my life, add some spice and some sugar to my life. So after I mix the cocktail, I'm going to sit. This is a multi-camera show, so you can't tell right now, but you'll see after I mix the cocktail, I'm going to go sit in my living room, which is right over there, and switch cameras on you. And I'm going to talk a little bit about one of my favorite things, which is classic movies, and I define that as movies of the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. I know Turner Classic Movie is already playing movies in the 80s, I believe, or if not the 90s, and I'm aware for people, and I'm this way myself sometimes, that classic typically means more than 25 years old, like a classic car. But I'm really talking, I guess, the golden age of Hollywood, movies from the golden age. That's what I should probably start calling it. And in particular, I'm going to talk a little bit about a man by the name of Irving Thalberg. And so in honor of Mr. Thalberg, I did some research, and I came up with a cocktail that I thought connected with him, and the connection I made was Irving Thalberg was responsible for bringing the Marx Brothers to MGM when he was essentially head of production there. And I don't know about you, but I love the Marx Brothers. I've seen virtually all of their short films. All of their movies, and not all the ones that they did individually, but I think I've seen all the ones that they did together as a group. And remember reading about their Broadway debut in a show called The Coconuts that was performed in the theater that Irving Berlin owned on Broadway. And these shows would sometimes go on for hours, and the audience wouldn't leave because they were just so hilarious. people would stay and just laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh. And a lot of it was sort of ad-libbed among, Groucho, Harpo, and Chico. I wasn't even born then. I know some of you think, hey, old guy, maybe was, but no, I was not. But like I said, Irving Thalberg was responsible for bringing the Marx Brothers to MGM Studios, and also adding a layer of sophistication to their movies, which Groucho was kind of skeptical at first about working with Thalberg. But after they made their first movie, Groucho Marx really saw that Thalberg was committed to bringing out the best in every performer, every movie, and that he wasn't trying to turn the Marx Brothers into stuffed shirts. Rather, he wanted to see the Marx Brothers grow and mature in their comedy. So I came up with this cocktail, and it's called Horsefeathers, or the Horsefeathers. Now, for those of you who are true Marx Brothers aficionados, you will right away know that the Horsefeathers was not a movie that the Marx Brothers made at MGM. That they made that when they were still at their previous studio, which I think was Paramount, if I'm not mistaken. So I got this cocktail off of Wolf Cocktail Den, and I tried to find out, who was behind Wolf Cocktail Den, but I could not. So I assume it's somebody whose last name is W-U-L-F, but that was all I could find out. But in any event, Horsefeathers was a 1932 movie. This was a couple of years before the Marx Brothers moved to MGM. And the word Horsefeathers, and I'm going to use his quote here because I think it's funny. So he said, Horsefeathers is an old American slang, sort of a polite version of the word that rhymes with wool mitt. Okay. So in other words, it's a very high form of nonsense, shall we say. And it has some of my favorite ingredients in it. So first of all, you start with brandy or cognac. I'm going to use a Godet Cognac VS. Some of you may know I keep kosher. This is one of the very good kosher cognacs. Of course, you could use anything that you want if you don't keep kosher. Godet has been making cognac since 1588. Wow, that's a long time. And it also uses rum, in particular aged rum, because aged rum has more gravitas, if you will, than white rum or even dark rum that isn't aged. I'm using Banks Golden 7-year rum, this is made in the West Indies, and you can see by the level of the bottle that it's something I enjoy. You can drink this straight, just like you would whiskey. Of course, being a sugarcane-based spirit, it's sweeter than whiskey. And then also, this cocktail uses Benedictine, which is it's a liqueur, and its formula is not known. It's been made for centuries, since 1510. I guess the theme of this cocktail is also the 1500s, right? But it has an originating. And then finally, maraschino liqueur, which is maraschino is cherries. In this case, I'm using Luxardo. This is a classic Italian liqueur. Luxardo has been making liqueurs and other things since 1821. So this is, I guess, the baby of the family here. And it all gets mixed in a mixing glass. So, sometimes cocktails get mixed in a shaker, other times a mixing glass. The mixing glass is kind of fun. This happens to be an actual cocktail mixing glass, but, I also have a beaker, I think, that I used to use for mixing cocktails. You can really use anything. I have my cocktail glass. Okay, I know most of you call this a martini glass, cocktail glass. You know, measure, jigger, and cocktail spoon, which is for mixing the ingredients. So it's real easy to make, and that is you put, first of all, an ounce of brandy or cognac. And again, I'm using cognac, which is a brandy that comes specifically from the Cognac region of France. That's why it's called cognac, but it's just a brandy made in a particular place. And then an ounce of aged rum. You can see I'm not one of those flashy bartenders like Tom Cruise in whatever that movie was, where he's, Cocktail, I think was the name of the movie, where he's like flipping things up and down. No, I can't do that kind of stuff. And then a half ounce of Benedictine. And Benedictine has a really lovely aroma. So one of the nice things about mixing cocktails is also just to experience the spirits while you're mixing the cocktail through, you know, our other senses, like smell. And then finally, a half ounce of cherry of the maraschino or maraschino. People say it both ways. I grew up saying maraschino because that's how my mother pronounced it. Maraschino liqueur, the cherry flavor. And you'll notice, based on the fact that there's rum in it, there's two types of liqueurs, that this is a pretty sweet drink. I haven't had this before, so this is a new experience for me, but I thought I'd give it a try. I will tell you candidly, I'm generally not a big fan of sweet sweet cocktails, but you know, it's good to change things up. And okay, so we have our strainer here, and we'll strain this into the glass. And you'll see it has a lovely golden color. I hope you can see that there. Oh, you know what? Wolf Cocktails Den, really great. This is a wonderful, wonderful. All right, so give me about 30 seconds. I'm going to switch positions and the camera, and I'm going to be right back with you. Oh, we got some sound feedback. One moment. Okay. No, still got the feedback. That should work. Guess not. Okay, I know that's going to work because I shut the other camera down. So sorry about those technical difficulties. So now here we are. I'm in my living room now. This is my couch, or the love seat actually. The couch is on the other side, It's this is oftentimes where I hang out and read and all of that. So why, classic movies? Why Irving Thalberg? So, as I mentioned before, one of my great loves is movies from the golden age of Hollywood. And to give you an example, last night I was at a theater here in Los Angeles known as the New Beverly Theater. It was a revival house for decades and decades. And a while back, Quentin Tarantino, who you would know from such movies as Reservoir Dogs, I think that's probably his most well-known movie, bought the theater, renovated it, and has dedicated it not just to classic movies, but to give people the opportunity to see movies the way they used to be seen before contemporary times, where people had cell phones and people were used to talking while they were watching a movie because they stream them at home and all this kind of thing. So whenever you go to a movie at the New Beverly, one of the ushers before the show starts comes out and explains kind of what we in the military would call the rules of engagement. So you have to turn off your cell phone. There is no talking, and he talks about the gestalt that they're looking to have there at the theater. And they actually, if cell phone rings, they will kick you out. And I was talking with a friend about this earlier today, and I this is me. I think it's a good thing, because when I'm at a movie theater, I don't want to be bothered by people talking on their cell phones or having cell phones ring. I want to be absorbed in the experience. So it was a double feature, which also you don't really see anymore. And the double feature was two movies. One was Bringing Up Baby from, I believe it's 1938 or 1937 or 38, starring Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn, a great screwball comedy. And which I had seen before, at least on television, hadn't ever seen it in the theater before. And the second one, I also thought I had seen it before, but it turns out I hadn't. Another wonderful screwball comedy called, all of a sudden, the Palm Beach, shoot. Oh gosh, here I'm gonna. Oh no, I won't be able to get it because I don't have the thing up. Oh shoot, it's a movie with Joel McCrea and Claudette Colbert, and I don't want to tell you the plot because it turns out I hadn't seen the movie, and it was a delight not only to see it for the first time, but to see it for the first time in a theater with a live audience, with the laughter and the appreciation for the jokes and all of that. So, excuse me, I have to have another sip of this great cocktail. Mm-hmm. Now, so a couple of weeks ago, I read this book on Irving Thalberg, and it's called Irving Thalberg, Boy Wonder to Producer Prince. So Irving Thalberg was born in 1899, and he died in 1936. He died very young, and he actually lived most of his life knowing that he probably wasn't going to live a normal lifespan due to some health concerns, etc. And so he lived a very dedicated, intentional life, like so many of the early pioneers of Hollywood. That's redundant. So many of the pioneers of Hollywood. He was Jewish. His family were immigrants from Germany. He grew up in Brooklyn. No surprise there, right? And he eventually, not eventually because his life was so short, but he came out to California, Los Angeles specifically. Originally, he worked for Universal Studios, and I've got my notes here. I want to see if they have the name of. Shoot. So at the time, Universal Studios was owned and run by. Oh gosh, I'm really going up on names today. I'm sorry, but he took over. Irving Thalberg took over production at Universal Studios at the age of 21. Okay, he was already running one of the major producers of motion pictures. And 4 years later, at the ripe old age of 25, he moved to MGM, not long after MGM was formed. So Metro Goldwyn Mayer was not original. It didn't start out that way. It was the merger of several studios, and that was engineered by, among others, the great Louis B. Mayer. And Irving Thalberg was brought into MGM essentially by Louis B. Mayer to be kind of head of production. So Louis B. Mayer was actually executive VP in charge of production, but in terms of day-to-day production activities, Irving Thalberg handled that. And Irving Thalberg and Louis B. Mayer had kind of a father-son relationship in all that means. So I think it's reasonable to say they loved each other often and they hated each other often. There were jealousies. There were peaks of over various things. But you'll hear lots of terrible things, especially about Louis B. Mayer. But having spoken to his grandniece about him, he was a man of tremendous heart. Was very, very sentimental, and I think that he loved Irving Thalberg not just for what he did for MGM, but also for the human being that he was, the kind of driven individual who had a vision and wanted to bring that vision into reality. And that's something that both Louis B. Mayer and Irving Thalberg shared. And I do think that's one of the driving forces behind the classic age of Hollywood. So Irving Thalberg had this, among the things he did was he worked to make amazing productions that no other studio would make. So I'm going to read you some of his most famous movies. They include The Barretts of Wimpole Street, Mutiny on the Bounty, Romeo and Juliet, Camille. These were some of the most amazing pictures of their times. And then I mentioned, by the way, before when we were mixing the Horsefeathers, that the Marx Brothers came over to MGM, and they made two of their greatest movies there, A Night at the Opera and A Day at the Races. If you have never seen A Night at the Opera, if you only ever watch one Marx Brothers movie, watch A Night at the Opera, especially if you don't like opera. So, and one of the great things about Irving Thalberg was he was able to bridge that divide between the business side of Hollywood and the artistic side of Hollywood. He could speak both languages. He could talk to people from both of those camps, so to speak, and in essence bring them together so that movies were amazing but also financially successful. And that's why I think he was eventually crowned the producer prince. He worked with the fellow at Universal who originally brought him into the film business was Carl Laemmle. Carl Laemmle, by the way, was known as Uncle Carl because people just loved him. In distinction to Louis B. Mayer, people tended to love or really not love Louis B. Mayer. Everybody's loved Carl Laemmle. So among the people that with whom Irving Thalberg worked were F. Scott Fitzgerald, Erich von Stroheim, Samuel Goldwyn. I mean, the greatest names in Hollywood. Also, he married one of the truly iconic actresses from the golden age of Hollywood, Norma Shearer, who, if you've ever seen pictures of Norma Shearer, aside from her just almost indescribable physical beauty, was an enormously beautiful person inside and out. And many of the movies that Thalberg produced starred his wife. You say, well, that's nepotism. But she was very talented. I know there are people out there who disagree with me, but Norma Shearer was a very talented actress, very, very dedicated to her work, but also a very dedicated wife and mother. And like Thalberg, who was able to bridge divides, Norma Shearer was also able to be all of these things: an amazing actress, a truly outstanding hostess, an exemplary wife and mother. All of those things were wrapped up. I mean, you know, for one person to do all those things as well as she did them is an achievement rarely, if ever, duplicated in the world today. And so, in Irving Thalberg's career, we really see the heart of what Hollywood wanted and became in the 30s, and set the ground for its growth into the 40s and 50s. So Thalberg oftentimes clashed with the enforcers of the production code, whether it was on matters of sex, whether it was on matters of just issues that weren't really dealt with in the movies. He was pressing the envelope, but in a way that, by any standard of today, would be considered to be very tasteful. So he wasn't looking to shock people. He was looking to give people the opportunity to engage with circumstances and ideas on a sophisticated level. And this too, I think, was one of his attractions as a producer, is he gave people an opportunity to really plumb the depths of their craft, their art. I think movies are a mixture of the two, and really take themselves as far as they would go, and he would be their advocate. And if we think about our lives, what more could we want than a couple of people who will lock arms with us on our journey, even if they don't 100% agree with us, but they're still willing to stand with us and say, because I believe in you, or because I'm your friend, or because I'm your spouse, or because I'm your parent or child, I'm going to stick with you and help you realize what you see yourself being. To me, that's the essence of life. And I would, many of you know that I'm a rabbi, so I'm gonna end this show with a bit of a blessing and a toast. May you have at least one person in your life who is at least as dedicated to you as you are to yourself. I'll tell you honestly, I'm blessed to have more than one person like that in my life, and it is truly a blessing. And that's my wish and my blessing for you. So, salut, as we say, or scumps, to borrow a word from a Disney film, a classic Disney film. So good. Thank you very much for joining me. This is a really special show for me because it takes me back to my roots of the Way to Wow shows. And I invite you to go and watch some of the shows from our first season when I teamed up with my very dear and longstanding friend Rick Carter, who directed the shows, and Steve, our longtime director of cinematography, and our whole team there when we used to convert my living room into a TV studio. And we had guest bartenders in who did wonderful cocktail creations. This brings me back full circle to my original idea for this show. So thank you so much for joining me. Wishing you a wonderful evening, a wonderful rest of the week and weekend. Look forward to seeing you again next week. And signing off as I always do, Marie, darling, you are my bell. Courage at all times, my friends.